So, I've been scrolling on Reddit and on forums, and I've encountered a magnific post about suggestions and ideas about PvP in World of Warcraft, and the future of World of Warcraft. And I feel like I could make a lot of negative videos. I don't want to do that. I prefer to be hopeful with the future of World of Warcraft, at least for PvP. And this is actually like a gem of a post. Like it's a very long post, but I'm going to talk about it and give my own spin. Again, thank you for the Redditor, which is Lebro, something like that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And which the shame of that Reddit post is it is a post that has been written, but only 12 upvotes, which is really sad because if you go on different other posts on Reddit, things like this, like very low effort. Let's be honest, this is really low effort. Talking about the variety of teams between 2.2 and 2.4k MMR, which is pretty much the age warlock and druid. That gets 73 upvotes. So you see the mentality of negativity attracts more than positivity, but it is what it is at the end of the day. That's how human brains are wired. But let's talk really briefly. I'm not going to read everything because he does have a bit of storytelling, and if you want to watch that, you can always watch the post. I will be posting this Reddit on in the comments, so you can always check that out if you want to. But essentially, he's describing that he likes M plus rating, blah blah, but mostly PvP. And he has been playing since Burning Crusade for around a year, and then multiple expansions very casually. And it has a lot of depth, like how he says, like the game has a lot of depth, a lot of potential, and the PvP in World of Warcraft is very unique. There is not a lot of games that can actually like give you the amount of PvP that it can give on a third person POV again. Which is true because in League of Legends, for example, it's a MOBA. In Dota, it's a MOBA. On Smite, it is a third-person POV, but we all know it's a MOBA-like game. You have multiple other games of PvP, but it's not really like World of Warcraft. So he describes his day-to-day World of Warcraft, which is queue for BG's Arena and a solo shuffle, meeting some guys in LFG to get some twos, standing around in Dragon, hitting a target dummy, and every Wednesday doing the weekly farm quest, which is everyone does that, and it feels like it is a bit empty when, especially if you're waiting into the queues. And now there comes the interesting things that are going to be talked about. So a real PvP area. So he would like to have a gladiator sanctuary, like somewhere where you're going to PvP and just have a very much of a PvP zone, which I agree. I think it could be nice to have like a Gurubashi arena kind of feel, where it's a all versus all kind of feel, where you can just hop in PvP in Valdraken. I don't care, something that is very close to where everyone is, and you can just hop there and be doing like some real PvP solo, but no groups, just purely solo. You're going in, everyone is enemy. That could be cool. And it just is a shame that they kind of give you some areas of that, but it's very much a gimmick where you give like power ups or whatever. I don't like that. I prefer like a real arena where if you hop in, it's you and your sword, and that's it. Would be cool to have that. Could have a specific daily, weekly quest, blah blah blah. He's giving you incentives to go there, maybe try to kill a boss with a PvP, PvE aspect. Like for example, in Ion, you had like a zone where basically you had a lot of like bosses and raid bosses or whatever, and you could actually PvP there with other faction. That could be very cool to have that in World of Warcraft as well. Like a big map, like something like Ashran. I really miss like OG Ashran, although it was like a cluster F. It really is something I do miss these days. Something that is not really competitive, but purely like a meat grinder, direct fun kind of feel, right? You just hop in and you know there is activity. You don't need to search in LFG. You don't need to search XYZ. You have the alliance versus the horde, and you're just fighting out in a big zone, and it's always active. I really miss that kind of feel. I may say. Maybe a system when you take control of sectors, blah blah blah, valuable rewards. So it gives you incentives there. and also a Hall of Fame neutral area where you can have statues or banners from the top players from 2v2, 3v3, and Soul Shuffle, which could be cool. But let's be honest, how many people are going to try to get those 10 characters to be their own characters? I'm looking at a lot of pros that has like 10 accounts and trying to farm Soul Shuffle. So there's a lot of that as well. I also look at Call of Duty and Fortnite. They have seasons and they try to mix it up. I also agreeing with that. I think if you could have like some sort of twist every season with PvP to make it fresh, it could be cool. Like for example in Mythic Plus, I think there is like keystones like changing, like the affixes are changing every single time. The dungeons are changing every single time. But it feels like in PvP you don't really have anything that changes except the balancing and maybe just new gear, or sometimes, if we're lucky, a new map on like in Battlegrounds. Although that has been since BFA, I think, a new map with Ashran, no, not Ashran, but with the Azerite map, which everyone hates. But they're going to work on it in War Within, but still, it feels like a very long time right now. It could be something like, could be cool to have like shorter season as well, but I already discussed about it in my past videos about seasons being shorter, being better for the game overall, but whatever. And so he talks about new game modes and playlists, which I think could be very fun, especially if you can make it like somewhat competitive, but you don't need to, but you could do something competitive, like an extraction based mode. I really agree with that. I think it could be cool, especially in a extraction meta right now. There's a lot of games that actually are into the extraction things, like for example, Escape in Tarkov, Call of Duty DMZ, for example. You have Divisions 2, for example. You have other games that are like extraction gameplay, and that could be cool to have that in World of Warcraft as well. A squad of 3, maybe a squad of 2. I don't know, but it could be something fun. And he does talk about it, and it's a great idea actually. A battle royale mode, which I always wanted. Although, again, people are going to say, but what are you going to loot? Is it going to be gear? Is it going to be spells? But you could actually loot up buffs, or for example, the map shrinks and you loot something like, for example, shields or whatever. I don't know. You could also loot spells. I guess you start with like a base spell, for example, Frostbolt for mages, and every time you're trying to loot, you get a new spell, and it's like random, but also not. Like your common spells would be like Ice Lance, Frostbolt, maybe Ice Nova, whatever, and then you have like those epic ones which you could get, for example, a Glacial Spike or whatever. It could be very fun, but it really just needs a bit of imagination from Blizzard to actually implement that. It could be very fun for PvEers as well, but also for PvP, because it's instantly fun, and they could give you rewards for that. You know, everything is like based upon imagination and actually making it a possibility, and thinking first with fun in mind instead of like trying to balance it out. Again, battle royales don't need to be balanced. It just is like kind of luck where you're landing, where you're going to loot, what you're going to loot. Are you going to get jumped by 2 teams, or are you not going to have like any jumps on you and you're going to last till the end? That's like battle royale in general. So if people are like concerned about balancing, well, it is what it is. But please try to think about fun first, and then try to make it balanced, instead of like trying to balance something and then implement it, and it ends up not being fun. But we have micro tournaments here, shuffle for teams. You queue up in 2v2 or 3v3 and you play knockout based games against 7 other teams. Could be cool. Again, I think here he has like inspiration from a game which is the finals, which is cool. But to be honest, you could also make micro tournaments like Guild Wars 2, which is basically on a tab, where every weekend, for example, every 2 hours you have like a tournament going on, or every like 6 hours or every 12 hours you have a tournament, and you can just go in and try to win that, and you would get gold or whatever, like a reward that is substantial enough to actually go for it, for example. Again, you could also just see Clash from League of Legends. It just works very well, and you don't need to make like a pure tournament. It could be like it's a Clash. like League of Legends, where you're going to sign up your team. At one point, you're going to get shuffled with other teams, and you're going to battle it out. Like, for example, 4 teams, and you're trying to get as far as you go with a loser bracket, for example. And you could get rewarded for it. But again, it just depends on what Blizzard actually giving instead of like trying to figure it out not to do that. For example, whenever you have a fun idea, you should try to not give like all the reasons in the world to not do that. Like trying to brainstorm negatively, like with negativity, I would say. Sometimes you have an idea and you try to fight your idea with like the worst possible outcomes, right? Everyone has that, especially in businesses when you're having like a business idea and you try to think every single possible roadblock or something that will stop you to not do that. Well, sometimes if you have a great business idea, sometimes it is good to just do it and then see what happens. And that's the same for I would say games and making things that are fun. But that's my opinion, of course. Duo or trio shuffle. That's difficult again. I'm not really a very fan of that idea personally. I think it should be just 3v3 is like a solo queue where you could queue up with a duo or a solo and you try to face off another duo or solo player, right? And if you're like a trio, you will face another trio, pretty much. That's how I would see solo queue in the future. But we still don't have any communication from Blizzard, so it's very hard to know what they are thinking about it. What other ideas do they have? New social features. In-game arena ranking, AWC announcement tournaments. Yeah, I think they should do that. They don't do that. They do it on the launches, but they could easily say in-game in 30 minutes AWC starts on Twitch, or in 30 minutes AWC starts on YouTube, or at midnight whenever we know who the winner is. This team has won AWC Cup 1. This team has won AWC Cup 2. Something like that, like something immersive where you as the player, you get intel and information from what is happening in the World of Warcraft world, which is sometimes a bit blocked off with how people manage to give information. They only give information through forums and sometimes on launchers, sometimes on Twitter. And it feels that in-game you could do more, but again, it will always depend on what Blizzard wants to do with their game, obviously. Small guilds, warbands, squads, that could be communities. I'm not really a fan of that, to be honest, because we have that, just need to optimize it, and they don't do that, but they could just do that pretty much. Better players search and team up, that's true, they should like improve LFG, but that is normally a priority with Blizzard, I think, for War Within. But again, that's what I would think. If they don't do that, then I don't know when they are going to do that. All in all, I think WoW is in a very good state. I think gameplay wise, it is in a great state. It just is balancing right now is a bit like backwards or just not happening. But if they actually balance like how they balanced in season 1, we should be feeling way better. But right now it feels like abandoned, or at least it feels like on the backseat with War Within going on. And I feel like they should really try to work on both fronts, because now it is like, why bother playing World of Warcraft whenever we all know it's like in a not that great situation, or not that great balancing situation, or just not that great of a overall sentiment. And it would be nice that they would give a bit more effort to the current product instead of like thinking about a product that is going to come out in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years with the World Soul Saga. So it feels like a bit dumb from their part. Try to focus on the now instead of like the future. Try to fix things now instead of like saying we're going to fix that in 8 months. No, try to do it right now. Like yesterday is already too late, right? So try to have that mentality, and we might have more players in the future. So yeah, overall, I would have other ideas. I think the battle royale thing was always something I would like. It would be cool to have. I think like a MOBA-esque map where you kind of try to take an objective with a small team could also be very fun. I think like some PvP VE kind of gameplay could also be something good. I think again faction wars should come back, but it's very hard for Blizzard to do that because they already opened the valves towards cross service, cross factions, cross everything. So it feels like they're going to probably in the future step away from factions, or like completely step away from factions. Like a human can start in orc zone, like in orc zones, which I think would be a giant mistake. I think again, what made me like World of Warcraft, it was like alliance versus horde, the good versus the bad, or sometimes a gray area. Sometimes the bad are not that bad, and sometimes the good are not that good. But right now it feels like, okay, we are having like one common front. And what about PvP? What about the world of Warcraft? Is it going to have a fracture in the future? Because again, there is no fairy tale. Even in real life, things are not always like in one front. They're going to break up, and they're going to have other factions, for example. What are they going to do that? And when are they going to do that? Again, I think it would be nice to have more information about it, but we'll have to see in the future. If you have any suggestion on how to improve intrinsic, like the essence, the systems towards PvP, please do tell me in the comments. Again, we all know balancing sucks right now. We don't need to try to say the age is overly busted or whatever, because we all know. I've already made a video about it. We all know that. Unfortunately, we could say that every single video, but at the end of the day, it's Blizzard actually deciding to balance or not. If they're not balancing, I mean, at that point, we have to decide, look, we're going to play that state of the game. Are we going to try to improve it in the future? Or are we going to say, look, we're going to step away from the game for a bit until they change anything? So that's more of a decision from us players. But again, call to action. What would you change system-wise? What would you actually put into the game? Again, a fantastic post. Again, I think I already said multiple times the things I would like to see in PvP. I think like battlegrounds being more on the forefront could be interesting. World PvP being more in the forefront could be also interesting. Arenas is very cool, but again, I think overall I prefer to have objective based game modes instead of like purely death matches. But that's my opinion. Like that's me. Again, I like games like League of Legends. I like also CSGO, where I have to plant a bomb. Same for Valorant, plant a bomb. Again, you have multiple games where it's not just a deathmatch. So even in Call of Duty, you have like search and destroy. So again, would be nice to have them think about it and try to improve on it, instead of like trying to say, look, since TBC arena, we have only that as competitive. Again, I'm also cool with arenas, but I think the player base would grow way more if we actually think a bit outside of the box, instead of like trying to replicate what we had in TPC and Wrath of the Lich King. We can just like try to grow a bit from there and try to be innovative. But that's my opinion again. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye.